Welcome to today's lesson on comparing negative numbers. Today we're going to be focusing on comparing negative numbers while discussing what a negative number is. Let's go ahead and get started. Now we are going to begin today using the number line that you see on the screen below. This number line has a 0 in the middle of the number line. Now most number lines that we work with start with the number 0. But since we're working with negative numbers today, we have our 0 in the middle. This is because all of the numbers to the left of the 0 are going to be negative numbers. And the further away from 0 to the left that you go, the smaller the numbers are going to be. We call these negative numbers. Now, if you go to the right of the 0 on our number line, the numbers are going to be getting larger each number. And all of the numbers to the right of a 0 on a number line are going to be positive numbers. Now, the further you get from 0, the larger the number gets if you're going to the right, or the smaller the number gets if you're going to the left. Let's go ahead and fill in the rest of this number line. We're going to start with our positive numbers first. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Each time we move one place to the right, our number is getting larger. Let's go ahead and fill in our negative numbers. We have -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, and -6. So just like we counted up with our positive numbers, we're counting down with our negative numbers. Now notice that the further we get away from 0, the larger the number is going to get if we're moving positive, or the smaller the number is going to get if we're moving negative. For example, on our positive side, the number 5 is larger than the number 3 because it's further away from 0. On the negative side, -5 is smaller than -3 because it's further from 0. Even though you might think that the number 5 is greater than the number 3, you have to remember that you're working with negative numbers. And -5 is actually further away from 0 than -3. Let's go through a few practice problems together. As you can see, we have a less than, equal to, or greater than symbol in the middle of these two numbers. I want you to tell me what symbol I should circle. -4 is less than, equal to, or greater than -4. Well, if we were to look on a number line, starting with 0, and if we move back -1, -2, -3, -4, we could say that -4 is equal to -4 because they are both going to represent the same point on a number line. Let's go ahead and try another one. Is -2 less than, equal to, or greater than -5? We'll have to think this one through. It might be best to draw it out. So we're going to have our 0, and since both numbers are in the negatives, we're going to have -1, -2, and we're going to label it, -3, -4, -5. So we now have both points labeled on a number line. So, if we remember right, every time we move further to the left, the number is getting smaller. So that means that -5 has to be less than -2, which means that -2 is greater than -5. Let's try one last practice problem together. Is -3 less than, equal to, or greater than 0? I think we can do this one without drawing a number line, because we know that any number less than 0 is a negative number and will be smaller. So that means that -3 is less than 0. Let's walk through a word problem together. Charlie and Sarah are pen pals in different states. Charlie tells Sarah that it is -3 degrees at his house. Sarah tells Charlie that it is -5 degrees at her house. Charlie says that it's colder at his house because 5 is greater than 3. Sarah disagrees. Who is correct? Well, we know to start that we're going to be comparing -3 and -5. We want to find out which number is colder. But how do we decide what colder means when we're working with numbers? We want to find out if -3 is smaller or larger than -5. Well, if we think of a number line as a thermometer, we know that as you move to the right of a number line, the numbers are going to be getting larger. And if we were to think of a thermometer, they would be getting warmer. If we were to move to the left on a number line, the numbers would be getting smaller, which on a thermometer would mean they're losing heat and getting colder. So let's set up a number line with the numbers -3 and -5, and that way we can find which number is colder or which number is smaller. Let's go ahead and start by putting a 0 in the middle of our number line. So we have a 0, but we're working with negative numbers, so I'm going to place -3 and -5 on this number line. We have -1, -2, -3. I want to make sure I label -3. And then I have -4, -5. -5 is a lot further away from 0 than -3 is. That means that -5 is the smaller number. Because remember, all numbers to the left of 0 are getting smaller and smaller the further we get away from 0. So that not only means that -5 is a smaller number, if we were thinking of temperature, it also means that it has less heat and is a lot colder. That means that Sarah is correct. -5 is less than -3. And Charlie is incorrect because he was thinking about positive numbers. And when we're working with positive numbers, 5 is greater than 3. Let's review what you've learned in today's lesson. When you're comparing negative numbers, it's important to remember that the numbers to the right of a 0 in a number line are going to be larger numbers and positive. The further you move to the right of a number line, the larger the number is going to be. For example, if we're counting up in our positive numbers, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Each time we move one more number up, the number is getting larger. Now, when you go to the left of a 0 in a number line, you're going to have the opposite effect. The numbers are going to be getting smaller, and they're negative numbers. For example, we have our 0, and as we move to the left, we have -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, -6, and so on. Now these numbers are getting smaller and smaller the further we get to the left. Even though it looks like the number is getting larger, it's not because it's getting further away from 0. And the further away from 0 you get with negative numbers, the smaller they are going to be. The further away from 0 you get with positive numbers, the larger the numbers are going to be. So when you're comparing negative numbers, it's important to remember how far they are away from 0. And when you're comparing negative numbers, you have to think opposite, because -6 is the smaller number than -3, because it's much further away from 0.